If you wiped everything from me right now, no money, no network, no followers, no testimonials, no reputation, I'm confident I could land a lead generation client within 30 days. Not because I'd get lucky, not because I'd go viral, not because I know secret people behind the scenes, but because I understand what actually matters at the beginning. And most beginners don't. Most people will never land a client, not because it's hard, but because they never send enough. They never send enough emails, they never stay in one niche long enough, they never tolerate discomfort long enough to let the math work. Instead, they prepare. Most beginners think starting from zero means building a logo, creating brand identity, designing a fancy website for themselves, watching 40 YouTube tutorials, buying 3 different courses, getting ready. And that's exactly why they stay stuck for months. Before we go into the steps, you need to understand something important. Your goal in the first 30 days is not to build a business. It's not to scale. It's not to automate. It's not to build a brand. It's not to grow a following. It's not to look impressive online. It's not to perfect your logo, your website, or your Instagram bio. It's to get proof. That's it. One paying client changes everything. The moment someone wires you money for a service you created from nothing, something shifts internally. You stop feeling like a beginner. You stop wondering whether this could work. You stop consuming endless content trying to feel ready. You stop hiding behind preparation. And you start operating. You start thinking in terms of outcomes instead of ideas. You start focusing on revenue instead of aesthetics. You start refining what's working instead of researching new strategies. You start improving instead of hesitating. You stop asking, can this work? And you start asking, how do I make this work better? That psychological shift is massive. Because once you've proven to yourself that you can create income from skill, not luck, not hype, not a job, the entire game changes. You're no longer guessing, you're optimizing. You're no longer trying to feel ready, you're adjusting based on real world feedback. Proof eliminates theory. It removes doubt faster than any motivational video ever could. It replaces anxiety with clarity. So everything I'm about to walk you through is built around one simple objective. Get one client, not 10. Not scale, not automation, not prestige, just one. Because once you have proof, everything else becomes easier. Confidence grows, decision making becomes faster, and the path forward becomes obvious. Everything starts with that first win, and I've seen this play out so many times. Someone watches videos for months, they take notes, they build the website, they tweak the logo, they research email tools, they feel productive, but they never send the first email. Not because they're lazy, because they're scared of looking stupid. And the crazy part, the only difference between the person who gets a client and the person who doesn't is that one person tolerated discomfort long enough to get proof. It's not intelligence, it's not talent, it's not secret knowledge, it's just the willingness to act before you feel ready. That's why the first client matters so much. It forces you out of theory and into reality. Here's why I think lead generation is the right battlefield. Week 1 is about committing fully to lead generation, not debating business models, not watching the best online businesses in 2026 videos, not bouncing between dropshipping, AI automation, content creation, and SMMA every 3 days because something new suddenly looks easier. Lead generation, period. You're choosing one lane and staying in it long enough for it to work. Because the biggest mistakes beginners make isn't picking the wrong model, it's never sticking with one long enough to see results. So, why lead generation? Because it's one of the cleanest entry points for beginners who want to make money online without hype, without inventory, and without needing an audience first. You don't need followers. You don't need authority. You don't need to be known. You don't need years of experience. Businesses already understand one simple equation: customers equal revenue. That's it. If you bring them customers, they will listen. It's measurable, it's logical, it's outcome based. You're not selling marketing strategies. You're not selling branding. You're not selling creativity. You're selling leads. Compare that to content creation where you might post consistently for 6 months before earning anything meaningful. Or e commerce where you risk money testing products and running ads before you know if something converts. Or coaching where you need credibility and social proof before someone trusts you with their time and money. Lead generation removes all that noise. You're selling one thing: leads. And businesses need leads every single day. That's why it works. Picking the right niche. So here's exactly what I would do in the first few days. I would pick one niche, not something vague, not I help businesses grow, not we help brands scale, specific. Roofing, solar, plumbing, dentist, landscaping, industries where one customer is worth serious money. So why these? Because they already spend money on marketing. They understand return on investment. And most importantly, one new customer can be worth thousands. If a roofing company closes an $8,000 job from a lead you generate, your service becomes very easy to justify. If they close 2 jobs from your leads, that could be worth $16,000 in revenue. Now, your $1.5 or $2,000 fee doesn't feel expensive, it feels logical. And when something makes financial sense on paper, it becomes much easier to sell. You're not convincing them emotionally, you're showing them numbers. That's why niche selection matters so much at the beginning. You want industries where the value of a customer is high enough that your service feels small in comparison. Once that niche is chosen, I would create a simple offer. Not complicated, not laden with bonuses, not full of jargon. Something direct. I help roofing companies generate 15 to 30 booked roof replacements per month. You have a clear audience, clear outcome, and a clear time frame. That level of clarity alone separates you from 90% of beginners who try to hide behind vague statements and confusing promises. The only 2 things you actually need. Now, here's where most people completely overcomplicate things. They think they need funnels, CRM systems, automation workflows, personal branding, a content strategy, a polished Instagram page, a professional logo. You don't. At the beginning, lead generation requires 2 things: one asset, one outreach system. That's it. Your asset is simple: a niche specific website, not a generic agency site, not we help businesses scale, not something built to impress other marketers. If you're targeting roofers, build a site that speaks only to roofers. Your headline could say something like, get 15 to 30 roof replacements per month guaranteed. Clear, direct, outcome focused. Under that, keep it simple. A short explanation of what you do. A few bullet points outlining the benefit. A simple form, a booking link. You're not building a brand, you're building a focused results page. There's a big difference. This page exists for one purpose: to make a specific type of business owner feel understood and interested enough to book a call. Specificity builds trust. When a roofer lands on your page and sees their industry, their language, and their problem reflected back at them, they instantly feel like you understand their world. And when someone feels understood, they're far more likely to engage. Clarity beats complexity every single time. Once the website is live, you move straight into outreach. This is where most beginners hesitate, but this is where the results actually come from. Cold email is the fastest path when you're starting from zero because you're not waiting for traffic, you're not relying on algorithms, and you're not hoping someone discovers you. You're going directly to the business owners. Use something like Instantly or any similar cold email platform. Buy a couple of domains so you're not sending from your main email account. Set them up properly, warm them up so your emails don't land in spam, then build a list of 100 to 300 businesses in your chosen niche. Now you send the emails. Not 10, not 20, hundreds. We're looking for volume. Let me be honest about something. The first time you send a real cold campaign, it feels uncomfortable. You'll open your inbox every 5 minutes, you'll refresh, you'll overanalyze. You start thinking, what if they think I'm inexperienced? What if they ignore me? What if this doesn't work? And then the silence hits. No replies, no validation, nothing. And that silence messes with your head. Because there's no response, your brain assumes failure. That's the moment most people quit. Not because the model doesn't work, but because discomfort feels like danger. If you can't sit through that silence and keep sending, you're already ahead of 90% of beginners. This is a numbers game. Your email has one job: to book a call. Not educate, not impress, not write a long sales pitch. Keep it simple. Something like, hey, I help roofing companies in your area generate roof replacements. Open to a quick call? Keep it short, make it clear, and be direct. Out of 100 emails, maybe 5 will reply. Out of 5 replies, maybe 2 book a call. Out of 2 calls, maybe 1 becomes a client. That's completely normal. If 100 emails can realistically produce 1 paying client, then you're not stuck. You're just under volume. The solution isn't to rethink everything, it's just to send more. Now let's talk about the call. This is where a lot of beginners get nervous, but it doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need to be high pressure. You don't need to sound like a professional closer. You don't need fancy scripts. What you need is clarity. Your job on the call is to understand their numbers. Let's carry on with the roofing niche. Ask simple questions. Something like, how many leads are you currently getting each month? How many of those turns into actual jobs? What's an average job worth to you? Roughly, what's your close rate? Now let's say you tell them the average job is worth $5,000 and they close around 40% of their leads. That means for every 10 solid leads, they could realistically close 4 jobs. 4 jobs at $5,000 each is $20,000 in revenue. Now the conversation becomes logical. If you're charging $1,500 or $2,000 per month to generate those leads, the math starts to make sense real quick. You're not selling marketing, you're not selling ads, you're selling customers. And when business owners see the numbers clearly laid out in front of them, resistance drops. Your job isn't to convince them emotionally, it's to make the revenue potential obvious. When the numbers are logical, the decision becomes easier, and that's how you close without pressure. Once they say yes, move fast. This is where momentum matters most. Don't wait until everything feels perfect. Don't delay because the copy could be slightly better. Don't spend another week tweaking design details no one will ever notice. Launch quickly, even if it's not perfect. Perfection delays revenue. Revenue creates feedback. Feedback creates improvement. The faster you launch, the faster you get real data. And real data is infinitely more valuable than guesses. Once the campaign is live, your focus shifts to observation and refinement. Monitor the results daily. Look at cost per lead, look at click-through rate, look at how many leads are actually booking. If the targeting feels too broad, tighten it. If the ads aren't getting attention, adjust the hook. If the landing page isn't converting well, simplify it. Small adjustments compound quickly when you're working with live data. This is where you actually become skilled. Not in tutorials, not in theory, not in endless research, in execution. Execution exposes weaknesses. Execution builds intuition. Execution forces improvement. Most beginners try to learn everything before launching, but the truth is, you will learn more in 2 weeks of running real campaigns than in 3 months of watching videos. So move fast, launch, measure, improve, repeat, because the market is the best teacher you'll ever have. Why do most people fail? Here's where most beginners sabotage themselves. Not because the model doesn't work, not because the opportunity isn't real, but because they get uncomfortable. They redesign their website 5 times instead of sending emails. They tweak colors, rewrite headlines, move buttons around, all whilst avoiding the one thing that actually generates revenue: outreach. They switch niches too early. After a week of low replies, they suddenly decide roofing is too competitive, solar is overdone, and plumbing might be better. So they reset, and every reset puts them back at 0. They stop after 20 rejections. 20. That's nothing. In lead generation, rejection isn't failure, it's filtering. But beginners interpret silence as proof it doesn't work, instead of proof that they need more volume. And then there's the comparison. They watch someone online claiming $50,000 months. They see screenshots, they see flashy setups, and instead of focusing on that first client, they start thinking they're behind. Ignore all of that. Your only job in the beginning is simple: one client. Not scale, not automation, not prestige, just one client. Then improve the system. Then repeat. That's how momentum builds. Not through constant reinvention, but through focused repetition. Success at the start isn't about brilliance. It's about staying consistent, staying in the game long enough for the math to work in your favor. Now zoom out for a second. Why is this powerful? Because once you land your first client, you've proven something fundamental to yourself. You can create income from skill, not from luck, not from hype, not from a job title, from skill. And that shifts how you see money forever. You're no longer dependent on someone deciding what you're worth. You're no longer waiting for a raise. You're no longer tied to one source of income. You've built leverage, and leverage compounds. Once you know how to generate leads consistently, you're not guessing anymore. You can raise your prices because you understand the value you bring. You can add more clients because you validated the system. You can expand into other niches using the same framework. You can build systems and eventually remove yourself from parts of the process. But none of that matters until you get proof. Everything starts with one client. Proof creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Momentum creates growth. And that's why the first win is the most important one. Starting from 0 isn't failure, it's clarity. Because when you start from 0, you can't hide. You either send the email or you don't. You either book the call or you don't. You either launch or you delay. And that clarity forces growth. So don't spend the next 3 months getting ready. Send your first 20 emails this week, build the page, book the call, get uncomfortable. That's how you go from $0 to your first lead generation client in 30 days. Now, if you want structure instead of guessing, if you're serious about actually doing this instead of just thinking about it, inside my school community lead incubator, I've laid out the exact templates, outreach scripts, landing page structure, call frameworks, step by step. So you're not reinventing everything. Right now, it's $19 a month, and I'll likely raise it as the community grows. No hype, no upsell traps, just structure and execution. If that's useful to you, the link's down below. If not, that's completely fine. But either way, stop preparing and start sending. Because once you land that first client, everything changes. I'll see you on the inside.